Good morning, all. Author Ryan S. Pratt here again. I'm about to read Chapter 11 of the Unsuspecting Mage with commentary. Now, before I get started, I just want to say that before my birthday, that was a few days ago, I posted a TikTok about showing casing my mint 10s. Well, I should have waited because I got some more. And I only do these because these have a recurring theme in my stories. The Morcyth Saga, there's some Star Trek things in here, but anyway. So I got Tribble Kibble, and I got the pink dilithium crystals. That's pretty cool. I also got Route 66, but that's got nothing to do with my story. I don't think I ever mentioned that in my stories. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. I should have waited to make that TikTok, but I didn't. Anyway, I tried not to yawn too much because 2 days of thunderstorms during the night makes a person tired. All right, Chapter 11. A quick recap. James left Trindle, went to Burn, found Myco. They fled there. Lord Coleraine has entered the picture. In chapter 10, they're in Cardry, the capital of the country by the same name. And James was at a bakery buying tarts, of course, and he saw Lord Cardry in a carriage drive past, rushed back to Myco, found him trussed up on the bed, got hit in the back of the head, and this is where we're at on chapter 11. All right, let's do this. Pain in the back of his skull beat a steady rhythm. Lying on what felt like a cold dirt floor, he opened his eyes to darkness. In an attempt to rise, found his legs and arms bound. Slowly, so as not to aggravate his headache, he sought a crack of light that might indicate a way out, but none was to be found. Either I'm blind or in a hole in the ground. Myco, are you there? Oh, thank the gods. Michael's muffled voice came from the dark and somewhere not far to his right. I feared you were dead. You were out for a long time. Where are we? I don't know. They put a hood on me before they took us. After that, we were loaded in a wagon, and I think they covered us up. I was told to be quiet, or they'd slit my throat. He paused a moment. I'm not sure how long they had us in the wagon before we stopped. I'm pretty sure we're inside a building. They brought us downstairs and dumped us in here. That was hours ago. I tried to wake you when we got here, but you didn't respond. Were they the ones who we encountered after leaving Baron? I didn't recognize any of them. Why? Lord Coleraine's in town. Perhaps our being here and his being here are related. I can't think of any other reason for us to be in this situation. You're probably right. What are we going to do? Did you mention anyone that I can do magic? No, I haven't said anything since they surprised me back in our room. Let's hope they don't find out, and maybe the Edge will need to get out of here. James concentrated and cast his light spell. The effort aggravated his headache. The light revealed they were in a root cellar. Sacks, along with several boxes, were stacked against all the walls save one. That one had an old wooden door. It looked to be the only way out. He saw that Myco was also bound, with the hood still covering his head. A quick visual search of the room revealed a little hand trowel similar to what his grandmother used in her garden. It was wedged in between two sacks. He slowly made his way across the floor and maneuvered to grab the handle. Twisting sharply and rolling away, failed to dislodge it. The trowel was wedged too tightly and the handle slipped from his fingers. Placing his feet against one of the sacks, trapping the trowel, James pushed with all his strength. The sack toppled and hit the ground, spilling grain and freeing the trowel. He slid over to it and grabbed it. Turning the blade against the rope binding his hands, he sawed. What's going on? Myco asked from behind the hood. I found something that may cut the rope. Fibers grudgingly parted beneath the dull blade. Can't you use magic? In dire need of an aspirin, James replied, I'd rather not. Time passed as fiber by fiber gave way. Got it. With hands free, he easily severed the ropes binding his legs, then moved to Myco and removed the hood. Thank you, he said when the hood came off. It was getting hard to breathe. No problem. Once Myco was free, James went to the door, applying gentle pressure, revealed it to be locked. Using his orb, he examined the orb closely. From this side, there was no way to manipulate the lock. Hoping it to be a simple latch and hook, he slid the trowel between the door and the jamb, then moved it upward until meeting resistance. A little more pressure produced a faint click as the latch came free. He pressed lightly on the door. It was dark on the other side. Taking Michael's hood, he put the glowing orb into it and closed it until only a small opening remained that allowed very little light to come through. Signaling for Michael to remain quiet, he opened the door slowly. The light from the hood revealed a flight of wooden steps leading up. The door at the top had light radiating through the cracks. Now, I like to be creative, especially when I was running dungeons or I was playing dungeons, because you only have a certain set of skills, and I like using them in creative ways. Like instead of there was no lantern. And obviously holding an orb would just was broadcasted. So James, being smart and experienced, steps in at Michael's hood, and then, a little hole, and it's like a hooded lantern, almost like a flashlight. So, I especially in the Broken Key trilogy, that one there, I'm very creative with magic. If you haven't read it, it's really cool, and I've been told a lot of people have gotten a lot of Dungeon Dragon and role-playing ideas from that, because Kevik, the magic user there, only has like a few. He's an apprentice magic user, level 1 basically, and he's got about 3 or 4 spells, but he uses them very creatively, and yeah, it's fun, especially his goo spell. Okay, looks like they're up there, he said as he turned back to Michael. How many were there? I saw 4. Let's hope they didn't invite any friends along the way. Maybe we can get out of this. As he started up the steps, he said, "Stay here for a second. I'm going to see how many we have to deal with." Michael remained by the foot of the steps. James took the steps slowly, trying to minimize their creaking. He placed his feet as close to the edge of the wooden steps as possible. Cautiously, he made it to the top. Voices came from the other side. Now, I found that if I don't want to make noise on steps, I take my feet all the way to the edge. Because if you go in the center, you creak more. On the edges, you tend not to. I'm sure some steps will be the opposite way, but predominantly, if you go to the edge, there's less board movement, because it's probably secured on the edges and maybe not in the center, especially in older houses. And so less creaking. Okay. Just how long are we supposed to wait? One whiny voice asked impatiently. We were told to wait, and wait is what we're going to do. Another voice commandingly told the first. Yeah, stop your whining, elves, another added derisively. We're making enough off this. All right, elves said. I'll wait. The sound of shuffling cards came from the other side. After listening for a moment, he returned to Michael and told him what he overheard. I don't like this, James, Michael said. If there are 3 up there, then where's the 4th? And is he the one they're waiting for? I don't know, but I don't want to be here when whomever they're waiting for arrives. Yeah, Michael said, we better get out of here, fast. James returned to the cellar where they had been dumped and took a quick inventory. He found little of use, just grain and seeds. The boxes, however, gave him an idea, and he pried 3 small boards off a broken one. He used the trowel again, sharpening one end of each. He handed the trowel and the hood with a glowing orb still inside to Michael, then carried the sticks as he climbed to the top of the steps. He paused a moment, hearing the 3 men talking as they played cards. He turned his attention to the door. The door was secured by a sliding bar. Fortunately, there was a handle on this side. He slowly slid it until the end came free. He thought about what he was about to attempt, and it made his head ache even worse. A few calming breaths. Okay, James, you can do this. He readied his sticks and formulated the spell he planned to use. Once he had it, he nodded to Michael, who indicated that he was ready. With one final deep breath, he kicked the door open. It slammed against the wall and startled the 3 men, causing them to leap from their seats. They turned in surprise to see him framed in the doorway. One drew a sword as the other 2 drew knives. James took the 3 sharpened boards and threw them in their directions. As they flew across the room, words of a version of his spear spell issued forth. Magic surged and took hold of the sticks. With incredible speed and accuracy, they impaled each man in the chest. He had but a moment's satisfaction before pain erupted in his head. As James burst through the door and cast a spell, Michael followed him into the room. He carried the trowel in one hand as a weapon and held the hood with the glowing orb in the other. Movement from the far side of the room caught his eye just as James launched the 3 sharpened sticks. A fourth man, who had been resting upon the cot, sprang to his feet. Wearing nothing but shirt and pants, he drew a sword from the sword belt looped around the back of a nearby chair and advanced. Before the man had a chance to take 2 steps, he came to his abrupt halt when his partners were struck down by the sticks. Afraid to face one capable of such a thing, he turned to flee for the door. But then James succumbed to the effort of casting the spell and crumbled to the floor. With only Michael left, the man stopped his flight. He eyed James's immobile form on the floor for a moment before turning a look full of malice upon Michael. Michael held the trowel out before him threateningly. In a voice filled with fear, he said, I am a great wizard too. And if you don't throw down your weapon, I will cast the fires of hell at you. The man snorted and advanced toward Michael. Go ahead, kid. Burn me. I dare you. He took another 2 steps toward Michael, who did nothing but stand there, menacing him with the trowel. Thought not. As he came closer, Michael grabbed the open end of the hood with his left hand. From his free hand, he held the other end and said with all his might, Fires of hell, burn him. He swung the hood toward the man and let go with his left hand. The hood opened and the glowing orb sailed out straight toward the man's head. He backpedaled and held up his arms, screaming as if the fires of hell truly were coming from him. Knowing he only had a few seconds, Michael advanced with speed and struck with the trowel, just as the orb hit the man in the head and harmlessly bounced off. With the strength of desperation, Michael thrust the trowel into the man's belly and was cut through the shirt. The slash opened a long gash, causing his innards to slip free. Tripping over his own guts, the man fell to the floor, not dead, but in great pain. He watched Michael take a knife from one of the fallen men at the table and came to his side. Tell me who hired you, and I'll make it quick. The man replied weakly, I don't know who it was. He nodded to one of the dead men. Carl, though, made the arrangement. He said that someone wanted you captured alive. Once we had you, he went and made contact to find out what they wanted to do with you. When he came back, he said that someone would come this evening to collect you and that we'd get paid when he arrived. That's all I know, I swear. True to his word, Michael made it quick, ending the man's pain. He wiped the knife on the dead man's pants, got up, and returned to where James lay unconscious on the floor. He checked James's breathing and was relieved that he still lived. Michael shook him gently. James, are you okay? Coming to, James gasped and held his head. Anticipated Ward with consciousness. What? He asked, dazed. Michael took him by the arm and encouraged him to stand. Come on, we've got to get out of here. Memory returned. Now, I've had reviews where people said that James was just a cold-blooded killer, that he just killed everybody, and that's it. Well, if you only got one shot at defending yourself, and you know you're most likely going to pass out or be incapacitated after you do whatever you're going to do, then you have to do something that will create a situation where you're not going to be hurt anymore. So yeah, he takes him out. You know, if they didn't come after him, they wouldn't die. But if they come after him, and you know, I've never been a fighter. I've always been overweight and out of shape. So I'd probably do the same thing. You know, if someone came in my house, I wouldn't try to capture him. I'd take him out, because if they got free, you know, they could take me out too. And I got people in the house that I have to protect. So yeah, that's why James does what he does. Pain ripped through his head as he felt as if he was about to black out again. He closed his eyes and took a few slow, deep breaths. As Michael searched the room, James looked at the 3 dead men with boards protruding from their chests. Then he noticed the 4th man, throat slit and entangled in his own intestines. Found some ale by the looks of it, Michael said as he returned. He held out a bottle. James took it, hesitantly sniffed it, and then drank some. It was ale, if a bit stale. It did help to further ease the headache. Thanks, that helped, he said, then indicated the dead man with a nod of his head. You did that? Yeah, Michael smiled with pride. Good work, James congratulated. We need to get out of here, but not before we take care of some things. He got up and moved toward the men killed with the sharpened boards. He removed the board from the closest dead man's chest. I don't want anyone to know what I can do. I don't want anyone to know I can do magic. Collect the other 2 and put them in a sack with a trowel. We're taking them with us. Why bother? Michael asked as he grabbed the sack. He took the blood-stained board from James and then removed the ones from the other 2, placing all 3 into the sack. James picked up the sword that belonged to the gutted man and stabbed one of the other 3 through the place where the stick had impaled him. I want anyone who sees this to think that we were rescued, that we didn't get out by ourselves. That way, in the future, we may have an edge in a similar situation. He went to the other two and stabbed them in a similar manner. I doubt if forensic science has evolved very far around here for someone to be able to tell that they were not killed by a sword. Forensic science? Asked the confused Michael. It means the study of a crime to tell what actually happened. Oh, responded Michael. Why would that be important? Finished, James placed the sword back into the hand of the man on the ground. Seeing the orb lying off to the side, he canceled the spell and caused it to disappear. Knowledge is power, he said as he proceeded to each of the four men, searching the pockets. Some coins and 2 small gems were in the pocket of one man at the table. He found the medallion the little creature had given him around the neck of another. He found his other amulet in the third impaled man's pouch with several coins. He put the medallion around his neck and tucked it inside his shirt. The other amulet, coins, and miscellaneous valuables went into his pouch. He turned to Michael. What people know determines what they do. The better your information, the more effective your course of actions will be. And if your information is wrong, it could lead you into actions which may be a waste of time or even cause you problems. Understand? I think so, he replied, not sounding very certain. Regardless, let's get out of here before someone comes by. James moved to the door and opened it slowly, peering out. Still very dark, the street was illuminated by the light that spilled past him through the door. The street appeared deserted. He stepped out into the night and quickly closed the door after Michael exited. Once again, the street plunged into darkness. They proceeded down the street a little ways, then came across a refuse pile heaped against the wall of a building. Sure no one was watching, they pried up the pile and placed the sack with the sticks beneath it. Sticks beneath the stack of junk. Satisfied that the evidence was well hidden, they continued on their way. A shadow watched from the darkness as they made their way from the refuse pile. It disengaged from the dark once they were gone and crossed to the refuse pile. It rooted around for several moments before standing, the sack containing the bloody boards in hand. The shadow then took it as it hurried after James and Michael. Who is it? We don't know. James soon realized that they were on the outside of the outer wall, in the poor sector. They moved down the road at a quick pace and were soon at the gate which led back into the city. The smaller gate for travelers stood open, brightly illuminated by several torches. The 2 guards on duty turned to look back through the gate into the city at the sound of an approaching horse. A rider appeared and signaled to the guards as he left the city. James and Michael hid in the shadows as the rider appeared. Michael gripped James' arms as he pointed. James, that's one of the guards who chased us from Lord Collier's estate. Are you sure? Absolutely. There was no missing the certainty in his voice. The rider passed through and turned down the lane that led out of the city. James started for the gate when Michael suddenly stopped him. Turning toward Michael, he heard him say, "If we go through the gate now, then Lord Collier's men might discover we're back in the city." Considering it a moment, he nodded. "What should we do? Find a place to hold up for the night and then come in with the crowd in the morning." "Where do you suggest we go that won't leave us robbed or dead by morning?" "Out of town a ways," he suggested. "Perhaps down by the river." "All right, let's do it." They moved down the street until arriving at a junction with another road that headed away from town. Turning into it, they continued until the outer buildings of Cardry could no longer be seen. Off the road to the west sat a field of tall grass wherein they made their camp. The shadow, still following, watched from the road. Once certain they were down for the night, it left and headed back to town. The mysterious shadow. Only the shadow knows. If you're old enough to remember that. Morning dawned to another sunny day. James's head still throbbed, but nothing like it did last night. The back of his head still bore a tender lump. The road to Cardry already held a decent amount of traffic. They joined those making for the gates. The guards paid them no notice. They were simply another set of anonymous faces. Once back at the Dancing Squirrel, they went to the room where they found most of their belongings except for the tarts and crumb cake that their actors had taken. "What do we do now?" Michael asked, sitting down on the bed. "We do what we came here to do and get out as soon as possible." "And that is?" James took out his medallion and showed it to his young companion. He indicated the design on the face. "I want to find out if this design has any special meaning." Michael looked closely at it and asked, "Why? What's so special about it?" "I can't really explain, but let's just say it's something I need to do. I also want to keep the fact that we're investigating this medallion a secret, okay? Sure, I understand. Michael agreed, intrigued by the secrecy. If you like, I could see if there is any place around here where you could do that. Someone like me could get around without arousing suspicion. I'm just another of the street brats. Okay, but be very careful, James cautioned as he gathered the rest of their baggage. Lord Coleraine may yet have other plans in the works for capturing us. I still can't believe he's still after us just because we were trespassing. That's the way with some nobles, Michael explained, especially Lord Coleraine. I once heard of a boy who on a dare threw a tomato at his carriage as it passed through the town. 2 days later, the boy disappeared. It was never proven that Lord Coleraine was the one who took the boy, but that's the general belief. Sounds like someone we need to stay clear of, he said. We'll move to the Silver Bells, the inn where Perlin said he was engaged to play. When you find out anything, meet me there. All right, Michael said as he opened the door. I'll see you there. Once he was alone, James changed into a clean set of clothes and went down to the common room. Aeneas sat quietly by the front window as he looked out into the street. He wore a sad expression. Something the matter? Furball's missing, Aeneas replied. She was here last night when I locked up, but I haven't seen her since. That's too bad, consoled James. I'm sure she'll turn up. Then keep her sight. I hope so. She's all I have left of my Eliana. Of course, I have grown fond of her too. He noticed James was carrying his belongings. Leaving? Afraid so, James replied as he handed over the room key. Something's come up and I need to go. You can keep the advance for the next 2 days. I really enjoyed your inn and your people. Thank you, he said. If you are ever in Cardra again, I hope you will stay with us. I'm sure I will. And if I should see Furball, I'll get her back to you. I would appreciate that, Aeneas said as he continued to stare out the window. James exited to the stable and found that his horse had been well cared for. He patted him on the side. They treating you well, boy? Of course they are, the voice answered. Turning, he saw the surly stableman from yesterday. The man's disposition apparently was little improved. The man carried a bale of fresh straw. Good day to you, James greeted cheerfully, stepping aside as the man pushed back to deposit the straw in the next stall. I suppose it may be, the man replied. You leaving? He grabbed the pitchfork and spread the straw across the floor. Yes, heading out today. The man looked at James over the stall wall, made a grunting noise, and walked out. Friendly sort of chap, eh? He asked his horse. The horse snorted for an answer. I agree, he said as he finished securing his bags. He then mounted and rode from the stable. He kept an eye out for anyone taking a special interest in him. Since last night, he intended to keep on guard and watch for anyone who might be following him. When he arrived at Cardra's middle wall, he found a single wide gate that gave entry where there had been 2 in the outer wall. The gate was busy with many people passing through, though not nearly the crowd that had bottlenecked the outer one. James grew nervous as he approached the gate, for the guards gave him a close scrutiny, but when he came to the gate to pass through, they didn't stop him. On the other side, he found the streets to be much cleaner. The buildings slowly made way for residences and estates. A broad thoroughfare ran left and right from the gate, which extended further into the city. A man walked by carrying several packages, making deliveries. James held him. Excuse me. The man paused and turned towards him. Yes, sir? I was wondering if you could tell me where I might find the Silver Bells. Pointing down the street to the right, he said, That way you can't miss it. Thank you, James says. The man continued on his way. The buildings along this route were very well kept, and the businesses were of a higher quality as well. Rather than taverns and the more mundane shops he found in the outer area, there were more craftsmen such as goldsmiths and artisans. After several blocks, he came upon a very nice 3-story building. It had a set of 4 bells which hung in front. They looked to be made of silver. They made a melodious sound with the breeze. Must be the silver bells. Can't be real silver, or they would have been stolen by now. He tied his horse to the post out front, grabbed his backpack, and climbed the 4 steps to the door that stood open at the top. He walked inside and immediately saw that this was an upscale establishment. Pictures hung on the walls, as well as various pieces of sculpture set in small alcoves placed strategically around the common room. White cloth draped the table, and not a stain was in evidence. A man saw him enter and approach. Can I help you, sir? I hope so. I'm looking for a bard by the name of Perlin. He said he might be engaged here. He was? Was? He told me he would be here for a week. Yes, he was going to be, the man explained, but the city watch came in last night and took him away in the middle of his performance. You can find him at the city jail, I would think. Do you know why they took him? No, they didn't bother to inform us. Miss Jolena was very put out that they disrupted her place in such a way. They didn't even wait until he was finished, just dragged him off the stage right in the middle of a song. Too bad, said James. I happen to be in need of a room and a stall for my horse. I'll have a boy with me. He'll be here after a while. The rooms are a gold a night, the man explained, and another silver for your horse. Meals are extra. He gestured to the far side where a lady stacked glasses. That's Miss Jelena. She can get you set up. Thanks for the help, he said gratefully, and walked over to Miss Jelena. Excuse me, ma'am. She turned and said, Yes, how may I help you? Looking for a room and a stall for my horse. She looked him up and down with an expression that bordered on snooty. It'll be a gold a night and another silver for your horse. The expression on her face clearly said that she didn't think he would take the room, much less be able to afford it. James pulled out 2 golds and 2 silvers and handed them to her. Her mood changed abruptly at sight of the coins. Where disdain once reigned supreme, smiles and cheerfulness now ruled. She snatched the money from his hand. Welcome to the Silver Barrels, good sir. She reached beneath the counter and brought forth the room key. We have 1 room left. It's on the 3rd floor, up the top of the stairs, all the way at the end on the right. He took the key. That will be just fine, thank you. The stables are out back. Gunther should be there, and he will find a stall for your horse. Appreciate that, he said gratefully. There's a young boy with me by the name of Miko, who will be here a little later. Could you direct him to my room when he arrives? Certainly. Thank you. With that, he headed out front and collected his horse. James took his horse around back and found Gunther, who soon had his horse settled in. He took his belongings and returned to the inn, where a boy assumed the carrying of the bags, then showed him to his room. Once there, he held the door open, allowing James to enter first. The boy set the bags down by the bed and then looked at James, not making any move to leave. James pulled out a couple of coppers and handed them to the boy, who pocketed them and promptly left, shutting the door behind him. James settled into one of the beds and yawned. Deciding to relax until Michael arrived, he lay there for a time, mulling over events of the past few days. Though worried about Michael, exhaustion soon overcame him and he fell asleep. Okay, and that's it. So we got Michael out in the streets, digging up information if he can. Lord Collarain's in town. James just escaped by killing people. A mysterious shadow's out there gathering evidence of what he did and keeping an eye on him. Who is it? Friend, foe? We don't know as yet. But another thing I get 1-star reviews about is like, well, James is a role player. He's a dungeon master. He's he knows magic. He should be making like spells, like shields, and he should be making weapons and all sorts of things. But, he makes an orb and almost passes out. He sends 3 boards sailing through the air and he's unconscious. How much can he really do? Plus, I don't think he has that much faith in his abilities right now. They'll grow over time, but he's just learning. And, being a dungeon master and having taken to task stupid people when he was being the dungeon master, his players would do stupid things, and you do stupid things, you're going to die. Well, that's in the back of his head too. So he wants to take it cautiously, just do what he has to, and get a good feel of it before he goes to the next stage. He's done little bits here and there. Like at first he did a spear, then he did a stone. Now he did 3 boards. So he's building on what he does before, and slowly over time he's getting better. And of course, by the end of the book I just wrote, he's just bringing down mountains. Anyway, yeah. So that's where we stand. Hope to see you tomorrow. If you haven't already, like this video, subscribe if you haven't. In order to generate more interest and more, get it out there and make the algorithm love it. Comment, like, subscribe, that and share. That's the things you can do if you want to help me grow this channel. And I would be very much appreciative if you did. And if you comment, I'll respond. So if you have questions, comments, just want to say, hey, Brian, love what you're doing. Keep it going. I'd love to hear about it. I'm having a lot of fun doing this. Anyway, take care, and I'll be back tomorrow with another one.